Stephen F Eisenman is a professor in the Princeton University and has dedicated his career to the proposition that the best scholarship requires a critical engagement with the present as well as the past. He does researches, writes and reads across many disciplines and is active in contemporary social and political movements. He is the author of 7 major books and exhibition catalogues, including The Temptation of Saint Ridon, Gangren's Kit and The Abu Ghraib Effect. Professor Eisenman has curated many exhibitions in the United States and Europe, and his next one, Impressionism, The Ecological Landscape, was presented in March 2010 in Rome. In his essay, The Intransigent Artist, or How the Impressionists Got Their Name, Stephen Eisenman roots how the movement Impressionists got its name. On 15th April 1874, they opened at the Paris studios of the photographer Nadar an exhibition billed as the premiere exposition of the Société Anonyme. 30 artists participated, included Claude Monet, who submitted a painting entitled Impression. Within a week, the terms impression, effect of an impression, and quality of impressions were employed in press accounts of the exhibition, in particular referring to the paintings of Monet, Renoir, Sisley, Degas, Pissarro, and Cézanne. Louis Leroy was apparently the first to speak of a school of Impressionists in his now famous satirical dialogue published in Le Charivari on 25th April, while it was Jules Castagneri who described Impressionism for readers of Les Ciales on 29th April. The name apparently stuck, and 3 years later, in February 1877, the Society itself accepted the sobriquet, voting to call its imminent third exhibition the Exhibition of Impressionists. Thus, the organization went on to have 5 more exhibitions, the last in 1886, and its members to remain in loving art historical memory simply as the Impressionists. Eisenman is concerned with 2 arguments. First, the accuracy of the account. How common was the term Impressionism in the period between April 1874 and February 1877, and why did Société Anonyme adopt a name that had been used in mockery? By 1870, it had become clear that any art based upon impressions, that is, upon unmediated sensory experience, must resemble the coloured patchwork that it was believed constituted unreflective vision, what Ruskin had earlier called the innocence of the eye. In that year, Theodore Duret said of Manet, "He brings back from the vision he cast on things an impression truly his own. Everything is summed up in his eyes in a variant of coloration. Each nuisance or distinct colour becomes a definite, a particular note of the palette." From my understanding, Impressionism in 1874 thus connoted a vaguely defined technique of painting and an altitude of individualism shared by an assortment of young and middle-aged artists unofficially led by Manet. The word intransigent also appeared and continued to gain in popularity until the Impressionists' self-naming in 1877. Now the French word intransigent, like the English intransigent, is derived from the Spanish neologism los intransigentes, the designation for the anarchist wing by the Spanish Federal Party of 1872. Does it constitute a revolution? Asks Castagneri of Impressionism. Castagneri states individualism was deemed an essential instrument for the emancipation of citizens from debilitating ties to formal political, economic, or religious dogma. Serving as a description of unbridled individualism, Impressionism assured politically moderate critics that the new art had both broken with increasingly discredited salon conventions and remained unsullied by any troubling radical affiliation. Eisenman now gets on to explore the connection between intransigent and impressionist in politics and art. Tourmaline claims that the fundamentals of the new art were derived from the principles of the political intransigence. Responding to a favorable review by Emily Blimont in the radical Les Rappels, an anonymous critic wrote, "Let us profit from this circumstance to understand that the Impressionists have found a complacent judge in Les Rappels. The intransigents in art holding hands with the intransigents in politics, nothing could be more natural." Now the assertion that the Impressionist had joined hands with the intransigent in politics was given further support by Louis Inault in Le Constitutionnel. Now, not all the evolutions of the new art as intransigent came from the political right. However, indeed, it was no less a critique than Stéphane Mallarmé, who described with the greatest clarity as well as the greatest subtlety the link between radical or intransigent art and politics. Mallarmé perceived the new art as an expression of working class vision and ideology. Mallarmé offered a set of homologies between Impressionist art and the working class or radical vision. Intransigent art or politics stripped away outmoded principles, seeking a blank slate upon which to write a new cultural or political agenda. The popular art commonly supposed indigenous to the working classes. The key term in Mallarmé's dialectic was the theory of the open air, by which academic formulae were jettisoned in favor of greater truth. Now, about the theory of open air, the open air painting thus provides an objective justification for the discarding of academic traditions or individualist caprice. Yet Mallarmé's further claims that the Impressionists stripping away results in a pictorial clarity and flatness that mimics the look of the simple popular art favoured by the rising class of workers and petit bourgeois. The poet's analysis of Manet's sea pictures illuminates this vaunted simplicity, revealing how the artist's techniques of cropping reiterates pictorial flatness. Similarly, Mallarmé wrote that the function of the frame is to isolate, that is the picture, thereby excluding from its concern all that is non-pictorial. Therefore, Mallarmé's ideal Impressionist painter is one who has taken from nature only that which properly belongs to his art, an original and exact perception which distinguishes for itself the things it perceives with the steadfast gaze of a vision restored to its simplest perfection. So therefore the new art between 1874 and 1877 was in fact impressionist or intransigent, that is, affirmative and individualist, radical and democratic. The essence of the new art was its insistent indeterminacy, or put another way, its determined position between those polarities of impressionist and intransigent. As such, the new art must be understood as a signal instance of modernist dialectics. On the other hand, works that primarily explore their own physical origins or constituents, like Renoir's simple formula, Mallarmé's simplest perfection, and their intransigent rebukes to a society that seeks to tailor all culture to its own interest. On the other hand, the apolitical self-regard of modernist art creates an environment favorable to the eventual industrial appropriation of the work. The free space desired by modernism also is valuable to a cultural industry that relies for its vitality upon the public generation of new desires. The Impressionist followers of Manet similarly succeeded in eliding ideological oppositions while still offering something that could approach knowledge. The evidence of the knowledge is in the pictures, for example, in the decomposition of figures and their resurrection as shapes. The evidence of the new painter's success in eliding comforting social oppositions provide the aporias that dominate criticism of the new art, that is, the free space between impressionist and intransigent. Ambiguities of the new art is based on the assumption that it was deliberate steps by the artist to create a zone of aesthetic freedom that could remain autonomous from political polarizations. Renoir's rejection of the name further fueled critical uncertainty over the new art, and the prolonged ideological antinomies to prevent painting absorbed into cheap tinsel. Success of the new art is apparently owing to the manner of style adopted by Manet and the refusal of a proper name by Renoir. Manet chose to expose the Enlightenment fissure between subject and object, or word and thing, through an art that called attention to its status as fiction. He also refused romantic symbolism and Jacobean tradition. In conclusion, I would like to say that realism meant to an impressionist that the painter ought to record the most subtle sensations of reflected light. In capturing a specific kind of light, this style conveys the notion of a specific and fleeting moment of time. Impressionist painters like Monet and Renoir recorded each sensation of light with a touch of paint in a little stroke like a comma. The public back then was upset that Impressionist paintings looked like a sketch and did not have the polish and finish that more fashionable paintings had. But applying the paint in tiny strokes allowed Monet, Renoir, or Cassatt to display color sensations openly, to keep the colors unmixed and intense, and to let the viewer's eyes mix the colors. The bright colors and the active participation of the viewer approximated the experience of the scintillation of natural sunlight. The Impressionists remained realists in a sense that they remained true to the sensations of the object, although they ignored many of the old conventions for representing the object out there. But truthfulness for the Impressionists lay in their personal and subjective sensations, not in the exact reproduction of an object for its own sake. The objectivity of things existing outside and beyond the artist no longer mattered as much as it once did. The significance of outside objects became irrelevant. Concern for representing an object faded, while concern for representing the subjective grew. The focus on subjectivity intensified because artists became more concerned with the independent expression of the individual. Reality became what the individual saw. With Impressionism, the meaning of realism was transferred into subjective realism, and the subjectivity of modern art was born. Thank you.